Welcome to WordPress. Knowing WordPress is one of the best things that you can do for your freelancing web development career. Why? Because WordPress is so versatile and robust and fun to work with. Woohoo, WordPress! WordPress is a fully functional open source web application that you can use to build blogs and other content-based websites. At its core, WordPress is a blogging platform, or at least that's how it started. You may have heard of WordPress.com. I think it hosts something like 20 million websites. Well, one cool fact is that WordPress.com is actually one huge WordPress site. Seriously. But that's actually not relevant at this moment. For your purposes, WordPress is a fully functional content management system that you can use to do almost anything you want. In fact, one of the coolest things about WordPress is that there are hundreds of thousands of free plugins that you can use to extend your WordPress site. Now, you may have heard about fancy web applications that are built using the Ruby on Rails framework, and you may be asking yourself, why would I use WordPress when I could use Rails? This is a great question, and I am so glad that you asked it. Here's the thing. WordPress excels at content management, which is why many would call it, myself included, the world's best content management system, or CMS. Rails, on the other hand, is a framework, which means that it provides you with all the things that you need in order to build a complex web application, like a CMS, but it doesn't do any of that work for you. When you start a Rails project, you get a whole bunch of files, but those files don't do anything until you make them do something. The difference is that WordPress comes out of the box fully functional. All you need to do is install it, and then in order to start using it, you just need to start publishing your content. Absolutely no coding required. Does this make sense? Let me try a little bit of an analogy out on you. So let's pretend that you are in the market for a car because you need to drive around places. And you've got these two options. One is that you can go to the car factory and you can get your standard run-of-the-mill car. You know, maybe it only comes in gray and it's totally functional and great, but it's not sexy in any capacity. So if you want to make it sexy, you're going to have to put some work in. You're going to have to, paint those, fire bolts and all the fun stuff onto the car. And maybe you're going to replace the seats and the interior so that it goes from like the boring cloth interiors to the leather interiors. And, obviously who doesn't need a hydraulic system in the car? So you're definitely going to have to install that, but you're going to have to do it on your own because the cars don't come with that.
My friend, the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
But the point is that worst comes to worst, if you don't have a lot of money or time to customize your car or whatever you need, you can still buy the car and drive it around and it'll be boring and gray, but it's functional. Got it? So the other option that you have, if you don't want to buy the boring gray car that you'll have to customize yourself, is that you could actually go to the auto mechanic or the auto body parts store and buy all the parts to a car. And that way you can buy all the parts that you want, you can buy exactly the parts you want, and you can build something that's totally insane and amazing and the best of the best, or the thing that's exactly like you, or it could be completely insane, right? It could be, you could build a car that flies if you want to. And that's really awesome, and you're really attracted to that idea, but the problem with that is that if you don't have time to do that, or if you do something wrong, you end up with nothing, right? You end up with a big pile of rubble and no car at all. And your core problem of your need to drive around and have a car that at least can drive you, if not drive you and look really cool while it's doing it, isn't being solved. So as you might have guessed, in this analogy, WordPress is that standard issue gray car, which you can totally customize. It'll just take you a little time. And Rails is more of where you go to the store and buy all the parts yourself. And although it's really cool to build your own car, sometimes it's not the most efficient use of your time and you risk having no car at all. The bottom line here is that most of the time when you're developing something, there really is no reason to remake the wheel because chances are someone else has already done it and done it better than you will be able to do it. And the great news is that thanks to things like open source, you can take advantage of that. And then what you do instead is you take your time and effort and creativity and apply that to the part that is unique and specific to this project, right? So it's not unique and specific to this project that content needs to be created, but the design, the content, the copy, the look and feel, the user experience is unique to your site. And that's the part that you should really focus your efforts on. And that's exactly what WordPress allows you to do. Okay, so I think you're probably with me. So now one last thing that I haven't told you is that you know by now that Rails is built using the Ruby programming language. So the question is, what is WordPress built in? Well, WordPress is built in PHP, which is a web programming language just like Ruby. And of course, like anything that goes on the web, WordPress also uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you're gonna end up writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP when you're working with your WordPress application. And tomorrow, we are going to be downloading and installing our first ever WordPress applications, and you are gonna be up to your eyeballs in PHP code. Are you excited? All right, if you're ready, go on over to the next step.